Can the draft lottery the what? I watched the draft lottery. Oh my gosh. Okay. I watched the draft lottery and I didn't expect much, but I was still sad about it. In the recording that we lost, did I say that? I'm pretty sure I said at that point, just please, I'd blow everything up. I don't want to win any more games. I want to retool for next year. And then because we kept winning games, we were not in the spot anymore. I still don't have an idea for the intro. Bye.
For the win! The open Luke gets the play. Are you? Does Hubunga.
This episode of the Eastman Sport Report was recorded on June 8th, 2025.
Hello and welcome back to the Eastman Sport Report. I am your host, Max Eastman, joined once again by my co-host, Steven Eastman.
Hey, Max, how you doing? Welcome to the Father-Son Coach Player podcast.
It's about the Sacramento Kings and San Francisco 49ers. I'm almost out of school.
Hey.
I think Tuesday, I get out of school. No, Wednesday I get out of school.
Wednesday's your last
I get
final.
out of school Wednesday. And
Yes.
the sad thing about being in summer is that there's not much to talk about for sports. Maybe I'll actually record and edit videos and not just one long podcast and stuff about that. He's watching the Stallions game, by the way. Every single time he looks down there,
I am actually watching.
He's watching.
They're doing
the Stallions.
highlights of Stallions game right now.
So,
Because if you haven't heard the podcast, we are actually Stallions fans now.
Do we live anywhere near Birmingham? No.
And do we watch every single game like we do Niners and Kings?
No. But
we are very glad that Jamar Smith is back as quarterback for the Stallions
Yes.
instead of Case Cookus. He was only 2-1 this year. I wasn't very. Matt Corral, I think, got injured, and Alex Magoo. Anyway, but we have Jamar Smith who's back, and the team is playing much better. They're playing the Memphis Showboats, who are 2-7. So we're in the middle of the second quarter. It's 20-9. And the Stallions' defense is actually pretty good this year.
Nice. Yeah.
So I'm very impressed by the Stallions' defense. The defense kept in the offense when the offense was not doing very good early in the year.
Yes.
But the offense is doing much better that Jamar Smith is back.
Okay.
So
moving on.
There's your Stallions update.
Stallions update of the day.
Yes. So was it my daughter yesterday was quizzing us, who's actually on.
Well, she was quizzing us on St. Louis Battlehawks players, and we're like, I have no idea who these people are.
I can name some Stallions players. They have a Sternberger as their tight end, and what was the running back and wide receivers? I probably should know a little more, but my mind's going blank as we're on camera here. But anyway, very happy with the Stallions. They're in the playoffs, hosting the championship game for the USFL.
Giddy up.
See if we can get 4-Pete.
Yeah.
Okay, there's your Stallions talk, everybody.
It's NBA final season.
Yes.
NBA final season, it's amazing. I think this is going to be a good matchup as well because the Thunder Pacers have been really good teams, but I think there's going to be at least one blowout by the Thunder, honestly.
Yeah. I hope it goes to 6. Can we get it to 6 games? Just real briefly, I think Oklahoma City's going to win.
Okay.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally think Oklahoma City's going to win.
I see you.
Totally think that if you just get the prediction out of the way, I totally think Oklahoma City's going to win. Their defense as a coach, I love their defense. They have, we talk about the Kings.
Yes.
And one of the things they've needed for years is length and athleticism. What do the Thunder have in abundance? Length and athleticism. Yes, exactly. So as a coach, their defense is awesome. Their defense just suffocated Minnesota. And it was Denver. Denver actually pushed them to Game 7 because they have the MVP. Kind of shows how Jokic is actually a good player, and Anthony Edwards is a really good player, but there's a difference between Jokic versus Anthony Edwards. Jokic is a little better right now in his career and stuff like that. So, and then also I'd just say that Julius Randle kind of dwindled, as you could say. There was times where they needed him because the Thunder defense was just swarming Anthony Edwards and not letting Anthony Edwards get anywhere. And the way they force turnovers, it's not just that they play good half-court defense. It's they force turnovers, and then they just get out on the run on the first turnovers, and they go on these runs that just, I don't want to say it, crushes the other team, just takes the will out of them, just annihilates them.
It's like when we're at the Spurs game all that time ago. In,
Yeah.
What was it like?
In San Antonio,
in
Thunder were playing.
Thunder in San Antonio. Like, it was a close game, which was
I think it was the third quarter.
Yeah, third quarter is a close game, and then the Thunder just go on this run, and then without even noticing, I go, they're up 20.
Yeah, like that's how I feel like the Thunder play. I'm like, then they played the Kings when they play it. Like, it's like they go on a run, and I think they did this in the closeout game. It's like, yeah, it's a close game for the first half. Awesome, cool. Maybe we'll actually get a close game with the Thunder and the Timberwolves. Nope, the Thunder just go on a run and then just dominate from there on out. Yeah, offensively, they got some players. I totally give them that, but their defense is what makes them special. And then the interesting thing is this will be an interesting matchup with the Pacers.
Yeah,
who they are good offensively.
Yes, very, very good offensively.
They're actually pretty good defensively, but they're not the class of the Thunder. So this will be a really good offense versus a really good defense. And I'm curious to see how this actually plays out. Now, I totally think that the defense wins championships. I think that's going to play out in the series.
Okay. One thing that I feel like if we had merch, my merch would be one thing, because I feel like I say that a lot on this. One thing I want to talk about is that betting odds throughout the postseason, and also before the season started. So in the preseason, the Pacers betting odds to make the finals were plus 2,500.
Should have put some money down.
The betting odds for the Pacers to win the finals in the preseason were $5,000.
See, if you put down $1, you get
Yes,
5,000.
it was plus 5,000. And the only matchup they have ever been in the postseason they are ever expected to win was in round 1 with minus 115. Every single series after that, round 2 plus 375. Eastern Conference Finals against the New York Knicks plus 125. Now they're actually in the finals, and the betting odds for the Pacers to win is plus 500. They're the most. I think this is one of the most bet against teams, underwritten underdog teams since the Dallas Mavericks came out, or the Miami Heat came out.
Well, I think it's more like the Miami Heat a couple years ago.
Dallas Mavericks, I mean, when they had Dirk Nowitzki, when they came out, and and that one they actually won the series. I'm not saying the Pacers are going to win
because they beat the Heat. That was with LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh era. Yeah, and they came out and I took that. Now that one I agree with you. Not last year's Mavericks, but that one many years ago. Totally agree with you on that.
Okay, and now let's move on to the Thunder. To make the finals for the Thunder, if you bet it for them to make the finals, it's plus 480.
That's not much, yeah.
To bet for them to win the finals in the preseason was plus 1,000.
Okay.
In round 1 against the Grizzlies was minus 4,000. That's crazy to me. That's insane. The only thing that they were ever like a competition against was against the Denver Nuggets, which was plus 200, which makes sense.
That went to Game 7.
Yes, that went to Game 7. That makes sense. And then Eastern Conference Finals, not the Eastern Conference, the Western Conference Finals was minus 350. Now in the finals, they're minus 800.
Wow, yeah.
This is insane. This is a really, really good team, and they're just showing over and over again how dominant they can be. And everyone has their back. They're seeing that the number 1 overall team is demolishing everything that comes in front of them. Like if the Cavs was able to actually get out of the second round and beat the Pacers, if they didn't run to the Pacers, they probably would have these sort of numbers.
It's almost like they won 68 games in the regular season. So they're really good.
It's almost like they went 13-0 at one point or something.
I know. Yeah, they had some crazy long. Yeah.
It's just
now. If
crazy.
you look back at the beginning of the playoffs, I totally thought the Eastern Conference Finals would be Cavs Celtics.
Yes,
totally thought it was Cavs Celtics. Everybody was saying like those were the 2 dominant teams in the East all year. The 64-61 wins, and the next closest is 51. Pacers only had 50 for the season, and then the Pacers come out of the East. Like kind of surprised. Now when Jason Tatum got hurt, Knicks were playing good. I kind of get that one. But I was very surprised
yeah.
by the Cavs wilting to the Pacers.
Mm-hmm.
But this also gets to the part where it's like
One interesting stat I saw, I think it was this season, the Cavs were 64-3, or yeah. I'm trying to think how many home games they have.
64 wins all season.
They're like
34.
They've only lost 3 games throughout the whole regular season and postseason at home, besides when they play the Pacers. The Cavs against the Pacers are 0-5 at home.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The Pacers are I don't know how the Pacers are such a good team. Like, I understand, like, everyone around them has this sort of mentality. I think it's sort of what I said about the Detroit Lions when we were walking into the NFL postseason, but like they're actually good for the postseason, is that they have the next man up mentality. They have everybody is just locked in, and also the most important part of this, as well as the mentality that they have, is that this is the new era of NBA teams where you have to have your entire roster is good. You can't have any weak links on the playing field.
Oh yeah.
Like the Thunder, they have. I don't think I can name one bad player on the Thunder.
Well, if you look at the exact opposite contrast,
yes,
Phoenix Suns, 3. So
yeah,
probably
three
of the maybe top 20 players in the NBA. I don't know if Bradley Beal's up in the top 20 anymore, but at one time he was.
Yes,
and they don't even make the play-in tournament. And then you got these teams with the Pacers and the Thunder who are just deep from, I don't know, 1 to 10 to 1 to 12. You know, they're just deep and very, let's talk about the weakest link. They don't have a weak link. Like they had in the game last night with the Pacers, Thomas Bryant scores 11 points. He has 3 threes in a row.
Who's Thomas Bryant?
You know, you're like, as a non-Pacers fan, you're like, okay, good for him. You know, and he's a big defensive, athletic, 3-and-D type of player. And you're like, he's like when Jake LaRavia shows up on the Kings, you're like, hey, we need more players like him. You're like, yeah, you go to every other team, like the Thunder and the Pacers are.
And they have 4 of them.
They got 4 of them, and the Kings got 2 technically if you think Keegan Murray is one. But like
they got 4 on the bench.
They got 4 on the bench, and we got 1 in the starting lineup and 1 on the bench. You're like, okay, so yeah, totally get that thing. Now, I do have to say the Pacers has really helped they've had 3 crazy comebacks in these playoffs. I think it was 2 in this series and 1 in the previous one, where they were, what the record is, down by 7 with around a minute to go, and they're like, I think there's like only been 4 teams that have ever won. That I forget what the stat is. I didn't copy it, but it's like they have 3 of them this season. And it's crazy. Like the big comeback that they had they were down by, was it 17 points in the 4th quarter in game 1, and then came back and won. Like just craziness of their crazy comeback. They just do not give up. They just keep coming. And when their offense catches on fire, like Neesmith catch fire in game 1, like just crazy stuff.
Can I say something? Teams trailing
just
7.
Your one thing?
Yeah, this is my one thing.
Keep going. Sorry.
Teams trailing plus 7 points in the last 50 seconds of a 4th quarter or overtime game in the playoffs are 4 and 1,704.
1,700.
Oh, sorry, 1,702.
Oh, sorry.
The Pacers are 3 of those 4 wins.
Yeah.
And that's this year.
Yeah, in this playoffs. Just, I mean, craziness. I mean, if the Kings were doing what the Pacers are doing, I'd be ecstatic, over the moon. We'd be recording a podcast every night type of thing. I would be so happy.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, of course, and then if you really get what King is really sad is we had Halliburton, and we should have traded for Pascal Siakam. But even that, I could go on a long rant about how much, but I really trust, I really kind of, in a way, I'm envious of the Pacers and what they're doing.
So what I'm going to say is I want the Pacers to win. I think there would be a great story, and I don't think they're going to – I don't think this team is going to be forgotten for a long time, but I don't – it's the Thunder, man. I don't – then again, I said this for the Chiefs, and I said I can't bet against the Chiefs. And if I bet against the Chiefs, or if I bet against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, I would have won a lot of money. So
I do think it's – for the Pacers to win against the Thunder – they're going to need some crazy runs like this. And they're probably going to get blown out because the Thunder's defense is that good. They are going to blow out the Pacers.
I'm gonna say
at
it like
once,
either at least game one, game two. One of those two gonna be blowout by the Thunder.
And the other one's probably going to be really close.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pacers have to win the close games if they're going to win this series.
Yes,
and they can, because the Pacers are way more used to being in close games than the Thunder. The Thunder blow everybody out. Like, I forget what the let me look it up real quick here. Their average point difference on the season was a plus 12.9. So they average winning by 13 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
They're not in very many close games. So if the Pacers are in way more close games, there's a chance that that's how the Pacers are going to have to win these games, is to be way more clutch and those types of things, and get some Halliburton magic out there. Halliburton and Pascal Siakam. I that's who I'd be rooting for in the playoffs. Nothing against the Thunder, but even though the Kings traded Halliburton, I totally respect the guy. I don't want to say I love him, but I totally respect him, and I'm cheering for Halliburton.
He's one of the few, I think, 3-ish athletes that I actually follow on Instagram, just because I really like Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah, as a guy, you're like, when he was here on the Kings for the season and a half that he was here, he's just a total down to earth player, and it's crazy, bringing in the Niners in here, him and Brock Purdy are friends. Now I don't know how close they're friends, but they went to class together at Iowa State. They said they rode the bus together and talked a lot about, hey, they're the point guard and a quarterback. They're similar. So, yes, they have a relationship, and Halliburton wears Purdy jerseys to the games every once in a while.
Can Purdy wear a Halliburton jersey, or is he too close to – well, Indianapolis –
it's far enough away. He should be able to do that. I think he should. If Halliburton wins the championship, Purdy needs to.
Yes, I agree.
Because Halliburton's worn enough Purdy jerseys that Purdy needs to wear a Halliburton jersey, even if he's going to OTAs this year, type of thing. When he shows up for mandatory minicamp, come on, let's wear a Halliburton jersey. Okay. Come on,
do you want to talk about the story of how the Kings almost got Pascal Siakam, just to put a little bit more? Saying
sure, we can talk about that.
So the Kings, was it before we traded for DeMar DeRozan? Yes, it was. Was it that offseason, or is it
it was actually in the middle. It was by the trade deadline.
Okay, it was the trade deadline before the Kings were going to trade for DeMar DeRozan. So this is the year after we make the playoffs. We're going to lose to the Pelicans eventually in the play-in tournament. We're going to make Klay Thompson shoot 0 for 10 in the play-ins as well, but that's in the future. At one point, the Kings are looking everywhere to trade for someone, because Monte McNair knows that this team needs someone, and they finally find one person, Pascal Siakam. So what they do is they actually fly him out.
No, his team was the Toronto Raptors were playing in Sacramento that night.
They were playing in Sacramento that night, and there was a meeting between Pascal Siakam and the Kings front office. And to everybody, to literally everybody, it looks like Pascal Siakam's about to be traded to the Sacramento Kings.
Yes.
And then he walks out of there, and nothing happens.
So some of the post things here is why it happens. So Sam Amick says, in the way it's framed to me, in an attempt to drive down what it would take to get him, some gossipy type of feedback on his game had gotten back to him. So somehow the Kings are starting to badmouth Siakam in some way so that they could lower the trade value. So, and then there's also a little bit of a thing of, were they going to re-sign him? So the Kings in a way wanted him, but they couldn't complete the deal. Which if I look at what I remember from Monty McNair is he was in every single trade conversation, but he couldn't pull the trigger. He was so close to doing so many things that nothing really happened. And I think that's the legacy of Monty McNair, is he was close to doing everything and pulled off very little.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's our Kings thing. If you can imagine the Kings now, even if you had Fox, Siakam, and Sabonis, because at that time I think they were looking to trade Harrison Barnes, so you'd still have even Kevin Huerter, Malik Monk, along with Keegan Murray. I mean, that's a really good team that they should have done. So, yeah.
Well, okay, that wants me to transition from the NBA Finals. Like we said, the Thunder are probably going to win. We both want the Pacers to win. That would just be amazing if they did win. But we think the Thunder are going to win. If we had to bet on it, we would say that. But I want to.
I kind of would think it. I would think it's either gonna be 5 or 6
in games.
In games. I think that it could be 5 if the Thunder's defense. Because I think the Pacers will at least win 1.
Mm-hmm.
They're that good. But if the Thunder's defense is dominant, then it's over in 5.
Mm-hmm.
If we can have a lot of close games, and the hard thing is if you're playing the Thunder, they hardly ever they take a lead and they hardly ever give it up, which is, as a coach, I would love that. Totally respect them on that. Anyway, so we're transitioning to the Kings.
Transition to the Kings. I want to sort of explain myself for what I said last episode for my cold open. I said, I'm pretty sure this is verbatim. I hate Vivek Ranadive with every fiber of my being.
I think that's pretty close.
I think that's pretty close.
Yeah, and you said it about that way too. Go ahead.
The first comments ever. One of them was saying that I could never say that about Vivek for him keeping the Kings here in Sacramento. I agree with that completely. That Vivek has done really good with the business side of the Kings. He's kept them in Sacramento. He's built a new arena for them. He's done all these amazing things. I think him hiring all these new people is just doing great. However, stop trying to be a GM. You do really good when you're an owner. Stop trying to be a GM. You meddled in Monte McNair's business. You meddled in Vlade Divac's business. You meddled in literally everything. Stop trying to be a GM. If you were a GM, you'd be a GM. You're an owner. Be an owner. Thank you.
You know, the one thing I think about with if I was just to play a little devil's advocate, what I just said about Monte McNair, I said he was so close to completing deals and he never was able to pull the trigger on the big deal. So besides getting Halliburton for Sabonis,
yes,
he never was able to get that third star to bit with Fox and Sabonis and trading Fox, which is I disagree with, but whatever.
Which was also a move by Vivek Ranadive.
Yeah,
putting that out there.
But either way, it's almost like because Monte McNair was so slow to make a trade, that Vivek's like, come on, dude, do something. Come on, dude, do something. And that's where he said, well, you could go get DeMar DeRozan. You could go. He wants to come here. It's almost like there was like, hey, you could go do this. Go do this. And I'm like, so I kind of feel like if I was to be a little bit of defenseful for Vivek Ranadive, be like, Monte McNair, do something, please. And if you're not going to do something, do this. And he found the deal. So yes, I totally 100% agree with you. Stay out of player management. But then I also feel like Monte McNair, why didn't you do anything?
Okay.
Anyway, sorry. Okay. A little bit of, back and forth there. Okay, so Monte McNair's gone. We now have Scott Perry.
We do have Scott Perry. I think Scott Perry is a great decision. If we didn't have Monte McNair, I would have sort of liked to keep Monte McNair because I just think that some of his decisions were if I could play devil's advocate for your devil's advocate, I think that the reason that Monte couldn't pull the trigger in a lot of these trades because Vivek was sitting there going, but what if we didn't, though? I think he was sitting back there and seeing all these names, and he saw Pascal Siakam and like, he's not gonna bring us money. What do you mean?
Good point. We do not know. We're guessing what happened behind the scenes between Monte McNair and Ranadive. So totally agree. That could have totally happened. Maybe it was Ranadive that killed this Pascal Siakam trade. Maybe it was Ranadive that went out and says, let's do a little bit of we need a little cheaper of a deal type of thing. I'm not sure if I want to pay him all that money. Maybe it was Ranadive. So I don't know. Maybe it was Ranadive that killed Monte McNair's trade possibly. So that's totally a possibility. But either way, the two of them together did not do it. Hopefully, yes, he'll stay away Scott Perry's way.
Yes.
If we get to Kings news, they were so the draft lottery. You get
definitely not rigged. Definitely not rigged.
You get four balls.
Never been rigged.
4 balls come out of the little hopper, just like in lotteries type of things, in normal lotteries. Kings were 1 number away from getting the number 1 overall pick and changing our franchise forever.
Oh, cool! That's just amazing.
Now, we weren't the only team.
Yeah, I know.
There was like 6 or 7 other teams that were down to the last ball too, and I think Dallas had like 1 or 2 options, and the Kings had like 1. So they weren't the only one to only have down there.
Yeah.
Which normally they say when you're down to the last ball, it's down to like 2 or 3 teams that have the opportunity to get the number 1 pick. So everybody's like, no. And they actually like, no, this is actually had a lot of like half the teams in the lottery still had a chance in the last.
I feel
ball.
bad for the Wizards though. Didn't they drop to like number 4 or something? And they dropped from the top 3 to 6.
Yeah. So they went to 5.
Now this is a really good draft class. However, 6.
I know. So that's the problem when you talk about blow everything up on the Kings' perspective. Is you could blow everything up and you could end up like what the Jazz or the Wizards do and get nowhere. And it seems like recently the number 1 pick comes from a team, I was going to say somewhere between 5 and 10. This year was 12th.
Yeah.
Person gets it. So it's not, tanking completely doesn't really help you. So, and Cooper Flagg is a generational talent. We've had a couple of these recently with Victor Wembanyama, and even there's been some really good ones recently. Cody Cunningham, even Paolo Banchero was really good a couple of years ago. So there's been some really good players that come out of NBA draft, number 1 picks overall. But, the thing I get back to, like I said before in this podcast, was Cooper Flagg's playing against the Dream Team, or not the Dream Team because they're not the Dream Team anymore, but the USA Basketball last year, and he was dominating then. Hadn't even played college ball yet. I also heard when he was in college, he had contracts, I think 3 contracts from different companies, so the NIL.
Yeah.
I heard this, and they said he had contracts. So it doesn't mean he made all this money last year, but he had contracts from 3 different people, like a shoe contract and a few other places. Do you want to guess how much money he was making in college?
Like $2 million. Okay. How much does NIL give you? Like 16 million. Okay. So this is sports. That means they make a lot of money. I'll say 30 million. Final answer.
Close. I think it was 28.
I was too off. I would have lost the prices, right?
Really, 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 really close. But like that, when he said he was thinking of going back to college, it's because, I'm already making money. So you're like, whatever. But he came out as I totally expected. I predicted it. But that wasn't a very big reach. I would have loved to have Cooper Flagg on the Kings. Like, you put Cooper Flagg on the Kings and you didn't have to trade anybody else, that would be totally change our franchise direction for the next 15 years. But, the Mavericks did it because, the Mavericks won because they gave up Luka. They sacrificed Luka to get Cooper
Was there a
Flagg.
team meeting where Adam Silver goes up to, what's his name?
Nico
Collins and goes,
Harrison.
Nico Harrison. Who's Nico Collins? I know he's
a wide receiver on the Houston Texans.
What? He goes up to Nico Harrison and goes, if you trade Luka Doncic, I'll give you, I just lost his name.
Cooper Flagg.
Cooper Flagg.
And if I was Nico Harrison, I would say,
No.
done.
If I was Nico Harrison, I'd say, no, I want to keep Luka Doncic. He's Luka Doncic.
Okay, that's a very good question.
Yes.
If you knew that by trading Luka, you could end up with Cooper Flagg.
I'm keeping Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic is the top 3 player in the world right now.
I think Cooper Flagg is that good. You could get Cooper Flagg and Anthony Davis.
Okay.
I
still disagree. I wouldn't do it.
That's fine. It's good conversation. I would actually. That's a very good conversation to have. Would you take, if you knew that you were getting Cooper Flagg, would you trade Luka Doncic? And I actually think I would.
I wouldn't.
Okay.
You can.
That's
fine.
fine.
You can write that down.
Yeah, I would love to have in our comments if that was the case. Comments there.
But do we have anything to say about anything left for the Kings? I have something real quick to say about the Kings.
There is some Kings news. So coaching staff, they've hired Mike Woodson as the associate head coach, which I like. He's a very well experienced head coach.
Which you need for Doug Christie, who's a new head coach.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, they're bringing back Bobby Jackson. Okay, cool.
Okay, good.
He was Stockton's Kings thing, and he's been on the Kings bench for a while. But then he went off to Philadelphia, worked under who was Nick Nurse over there for 2 years at least. So he's gone out and done other things and came back. They also signed as another assistant coach, Chris Darnell. I don't know him a whole bunch. He was the last season's head coach of the Cleveland Charge. Okay, their G League team. They're bringing in long-time NBA assistant Mike Miller, who used to be a really good shooter.
Nice.
Okay, he spent the last 3 seasons with the Wizards. Okay.
Do we need him?
The other one I think I'm hearing is Paul Jesperson. If I'm saying his name right, I hope I'm not. I'm probably not. But anyway, he's also joining the staff as head of player development, according to league sources. So there's that. Kings contract situations. Keegan Murray is up for an extension this summer.
Nice.
Curious. I don't think he gets max money, but how much will he get? Can the Kings become an agreement? I saw one person predict $30 million, which I kind of agree with, but now you're starting to get expensive. And when you have Sabonis at 40-something, Levine at 40-something, DeMar DeRozan at 26, Malik Monk's around $18 million. If you add Keegan Murray up to there, around 30, you're like, now you're getting an expensive team. And then if you're not competing for championships, that's too many expensive players. The other thing that's an interesting thing for this thing is the Kings, of course, I don't know what they're going to do with Jake LaRavia because they're limited. They can only spend like $5 million on him. Will they be able to re-sign him?
Can I say something about Jake LaRavia? I was going to try to say this before we end. Jake LaRavia on Basketball Insider's News. This is a quote from Jake LaRavia. I told the Kings that if they gave Doug Christie the job, I would be even more excited to go back there. And they did. I've really enjoyed being in Sacramento. Beyond the coaches and players, the fans are incredible. I see the possibility of going back. So that sounds really good.
Yeah.
Because I'd want Jake LaRavia to stay forever, personally.
I think he's really good. Now, for the right money, I think at $5 million, I think this was one of those things. Is this like a Malik Monk thing last year where the Kings were limited to give Malik Monk, was it $17, $18 million? And that's the highest they could go. In a way, it's like you couldn't outbid yourself. You couldn't just give Malik Monk $25 million because that's what he wanted. No, you were limited, so you kind of said, well, this is all we can do. We're going to give you as much as we want because we love you, Malik Monk, but we're limited by $17, $18 million. And you're like, okay. And he says he could have taken more, but you're like, he wanted to come back, which I totally love. And Jake LaRavia did a similar situation where they're limited to only give him $5 million, and you're like, how much? I mean, like, I'd probably give him, like, Trey Lyles is making $8 million. Okay, is he around? He probably could get around 7, 8, but it's like, because he likes Kings and Doug Christie, does he stay because, hey, I could get 2 years, maybe $11 million, I think is where he's at, maybe.
Okay.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, that's what he does. The other question is for status of contracts is Keon Ellis. Have you heard about Keon Ellis's contract?
I've not heard about Gian. Did I just say Gian Ellis?
Yes, Keon Ellis.
Keon Ellis. Gian Ellis.
Because he did play in the G League originally.
I'm not. No, I am wrong. I can't defend myself here.
Okay, I was trying to help you there. Keon Ellis originally signed he had a 2-way contract as an undrafted free agent. So a great find by the Kings. Some of the good things Bonde McNair did, okay? Signed him in 2022. In February of 23, they signed him to a 3-year deal. So this is now 25. So he has 1 year left on his contract at a very cheap rate. I think it's around $2 million. Okay, so as a team option, I look at my notes, I have it there. As a team option for $2.3 million. If I'm the Kings, Keon Ellis at $2.3 million, great, awesome deal. Let's do that.
Yeah.
The problem is, if you sign him for $2.3 million this year, team option, okay, he becomes an unrestricted free agent next offseason.
Yeah.
So now anybody can do it, and you have no control over him. If you decline the team option this year, he becomes a restricted free agent. So you have, whatever money he gets offered by another team, you have time to match. So it'd be interesting to see what Scott Perry does. Does he pick it up? Now, if you pick up the team option at 2.3, it says that I read that you can by February, because when he signed his deal in February, by February of 26, they can extend him at that time. So they can't extend it. So they can't pick it up and just do the extension right now. They have to wait till February of 26 to do the extension. So now you start thinking okay, well, how much would you pay Keon Ellis? And you're like, is he kind of like a Alex Caruso? I think Alex Caruso makes somewhere in the 15 to 20 million, maybe.
Yeah.
So you're like, he could be making that, but now you're buying, that gets to a really expensive team that's only making play-in tournament money. So it's an interesting decision to see what Scott Perry does.
Yes.
So I'm curious to see what he does with that. We could probably talk more. But there is some trade things that we could talk about the Kings. Hopefully we don't go too long on this because we're already a little bit into it. But King stuff. Okay. Let's just go through a quick list here. Big fish-wise, Max, which ones of these would you trade for?
Oh, you're doing one of these. Okay.
Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Devin Booker, or Zion Williamson? Which of those four would you try to trade for if you were the Kings?
For how good of a player Kevin Durant is, yet also how old he is, I don't think he would fit on this team. I feel like for my answer for a lot of these is going to be if we still had De'Aaron Fox. If this was before we traded for DeMar DeRozan, If it's that offseason, yes, I would trade for Kevin Durant. However, in the situation that we're in now, and we're sort of trying to rebuild, I'd want a younger player than Kevin Durant. And now there's a lot of players younger than Kevin Durant.
Because he's 37.
Yeah,
I think.
but also, I think of what the Suns would probably want for Kevin Durant. No,
yeah.
it is too much to give up just for one player who's gonna retire in probably 3 seasons.
Okay.
That's my answer.
Okay, so what about Giannis, Booker, or Zion? Is there any one of those 4 that you would say I'm all in?
Giannis, yes, he makes you an instant playoff shoe-in,
And
basically.
I think he's around 30, so he's actually like Sabonis is probably a year or 2 younger than him. Now you might have to trade Sabonis to get Giannis.
That's fine. I'm so fine with that. If you have to trade Sabonis for Giannis Antetokounmpo, I am driving I'm driving Sabonis to the airport. Personally, I would even drive him all the way down to Milwaukee.
I'd give him a present.
Have a wonderful road trip with him.
Yeah, we'd give him a send-off, say we love we love Sabonis.
I'd buy him a personalized Milwaukee Bucks jersey with his name on it.
Yeah.
It'd be great. It'd be amazing. And then I'd also be there when Giannis arrives on the jet and go, please, we're gonna be so good. At least we're gonna be at least the 4. No, not 4 seed. We're gonna be at least the 7 seed now.
Maybe 8, maybe 6, maybe top 6 with Giannis.
Okay, but Giannis is a yes. I don't care how much you give. Well, I care how much you give up. I'll give up a lot for Giannis. I won't give up everything like how the Timberwolves traded everything for Gobert, but I will give up a lot for Giannis Antetokounmpo. And then who's the next one? Devin Booker.
Devin Booker.
Okay, I feel like
if you trade
for
Zach LaVine for him, I'm in.
Okay, do the Suns want Zach LaVine? No, but if I
could,
yes. If I could, I would try to trade Zach LaVine. I feel like they would want Malik Monk more than they would want Zach LaVine, and I'm fine with trading Malik Monk over that. Now, I feel like the price for not Zach LaVine, for Devin Booker and Giannis is really, really similar.
Yeah.
But Devin Booker is younger than Giannis, and he fits a position that we need more, which is the guard role.
Which is the funny thing is if you think about what we have between Zach LaVine, Malik Monk, and Keon Ellis, they all play this number 2 shooting guard position. That's a lot of money in one position.
Okay, and so
Devin Booker is a 2 guard.
I would trade Malik Monk and like Devin Carter for Devin Booker. And now because
that works money-wise.
Now one of the reasons why I wanted I don't care about I'm not thinking money-wise right now.
Okay.
One of the reasons why I'm thinking that is because according to sources, which I cannot think of the name of right now, the Kings are aggressive and Scott Perry are aggressively trying to I think is sign or either I'm pretty sure it's sign Drew Holiday right now.
I think they'd have to trade
for him.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really good move. He fills the point guard position, which we need really, really bad. And if you have Drew Holiday and you have Devin Booker, I think that's a really good guard team up.
Ooh, could you get both of those?
No, you would not. We would not get both of those.
In a perfect world.
In a perfect world, if we could get both of those, that would be amazing.
I would take that.
Yeah, exactly. And
because the other thing was the point guard role is who would you trade for? Trae Young, John Morant, LaMelo Ball, or Drew Holiday?
Drew Holiday is the most realistic option. Trae Young, I think he's too much of a liability on defense for us as a team which isn't very good defensively. The player that I'd want the most is John Morant. However, the Grizzlies are not going to give up John Morant. I know it.
And he's also the biggest head case.
Well, we can work out his problems because he's going to be in Sacramento. He's going to be in Sacramento. There's nothing fun to do.
He's going to be shooting something out of the fields with his gun.
He hasn't shot anyone. He's just
That's true.
He's just showing it.
He just likes to show off his guns.
Okay,
whatever.
And then
these gun shows. But anyway,
and then I think the 2 most realistic options for players that I would actually want is Drew Holiday. We already talked about him. I think he's really good defensively for us.
Oh yeah,
and it might actually happen. It might not. But
I like the Drew Holiday thing.
Yes.
I kind of love your idea of pairing Drew Holiday with Devin Booker. And if you could that means you're trading LaVine.
That means you're trading LaVine. You're probably trading Monk as well.
Probably. And you have to.
Okay, so in my mind, if you were trying to get Devin Booker and Drew Holiday, we're going on a little bit tangent, getting off topic. If you want Devin Booker and Drew Holiday, you're probably giving up DeRozan, you're probably giving up LaVine, you're probably giving up Malik Monk. And I'd throw also Devin Carter in there and some other player that you just throw in the trade. It might be a 3-team trade where they get someone else.
Yeah.
But that's what I think would happen.
So you'd have a team built around Drew Holiday, Devin Booker. You'd have Keon Ellis still. You have Keegan Murray.
I like Keon Ellis a lot.
Sabonis.
However, he's never going to be a start. I think he's really good. I think that if he backs up Drew Holiday, oh my gosh, the rotation of that is going to be so good
Keon Ellis?
For Keon Ellis, switching off for Drew Holiday.
Oh, yeah.
And anytime that Devin Booker gets subbed out, then both Keon Ellis and Drew Holiday can play together. I think that should be a monster defensively. And also, I think that Keegan Murray can fit in that spot for starting spot as well. And the playmaking aspect of Devin Booker and Sabonis would work really well.
Because I do think that Scott Perry has an interesting decision to make.
Yes.
If as you rebuild this team, and we've seen other people do this, like, was this Bobby Jackson or it was a guy they put out? He was on a podcast, and he's signed up to be the Kings assistant GM to Scott Perry. And he was on a podcast, like, I don't know when that was. I forget the guy's name. And we listened to his podcast. We sent it to each other, and you're like, that guy had the most realistic analysis of the Kings roster, where he says it's a whole bunch of good players.
BJ Armstrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
So BJ Armstrong went on and said the Kings have a whole bunch of good pieces, but they have no cohesive vision.
Yes.
So I totally agree. Scott Perry's got to have to trade somebody. And so the idea behind is, I think the biggest one you got to figure out was, I think they're going to trade DeMar DeRozan. Not only the fact is that he wants to contend, he doesn't fit with what the rest of you have.
The reason why he came here is because he wanted to win games with Fox, and now he's not winning games with Fox.
so I agree. So I think it doesn't fit. You talk about B.J. Armstrong says it doesn't fit. So the biggest, besides trading DeMar DeRozan, so you're going to do something for him, is what do you do with Sabonis and Levine? I don't think they work together good. Now, maybe with an offseason they can get better.
Yes.
But Sabonis, the only way you maximize Sabonis is you play the way the offense has been, where he does the DHOs, the dribble handoffs, and you run the ball through Sabonis. If you don't run the ball through Sabonis, then why do you have Sabonis? If you don't play an offense that runs the ball through Sabonis, getting the coach talk here, then why do you have him? If all you're doing is he's just your screener for Levine, like, I'm sorry that doesn't maximize Sabonis's role. It kind of puts him in he's a secondary, a third player. No, if you want to maximize your team, what you need to do if you want to maximize Sabonis to get to the playoffs is you need players around him. I think Booker and Sabonis is a better pairing than Levine and Sabonis, which, anyways, that's a whole other thing. So Scott Perry has to decide, what are you doing with Sabonis? Are you keeping Sabonis, or are you trading him for a big name? And the other thing is do you think or are you stuck with Levine and Sabonis as your two best players going forward? And if you're doing that, we'll probably get the same result we get this year.
Yes.
Okay. Do we want to go through the 5 other trades? I want
to say the one other thing that you kind of cut me off for a little bit. LaMelo Ball. I think he'd be interesting to get. He would be the point guard for a team. I think if you get LaMelo Ball, you don't get Drew Holiday.
Totally agree.
But out of everyone that I would want, I want LaMelo Ball the most. Now, he is very injury prone with how he plays, and probably because of his shoes, because he wears whatever Big Baller brand is. That's a lie. He wears some other brand now. But I think that because of how injury prone he is, I wouldn't exactly want him. I would want, but if I had to choose John Morant, Trae Young, and LaMelo Ball, I want LaMelo Ball the most, because I think the most important part of why I want LaMelo Ball is because he would fit well with Sabonis, like how you're saying, is that he would play around Sabonis and play with Sabonis. And John Morant he's John Morant. You got to play John Morant's game. And Trae Young you got to play Trae Young's game. He's gonna do some weird stuff, and he's gonna make some threes, and he's gonna be the facilitator of the ball because he gets a lot of assists as well. But if you have LaMelo Ball, I feel like he would have a really, really good game plan if you put him with Sabonis, if he didn't have to be the person that created the entire offense like he did with the Hornets this year.
I think that if you add LaMelo Ball, you could keep Levine and Sabonis and play that game. That is an interesting thing, because I totally agree. If he stays healthy, I think that's a very good point you bring up about him playing with Sabonis. Okay. Do you want to go through the 5 trade possibilities that I got down from DeMar DeRozan?
Okay.
So this is from somebody else, Locked on Kings, Matt George.
Okay.
And even some other people in the Kings area picked up on this, and they talked about these as well. Okay, here's 5 possible trades for DeMar DeRozan, because we're all saying we're most likely DeMar DeRozan is going to be traded.
Yes.
What are realistic trades that you get back? So The idea is you're trading to a team that is similar situation to the Kings last year, where you need another player, another scorer that's going to loft you to the next level. That's the idea that we're looking at here. So Orlando Magic, they need an additional scorer. They're really good defensively. They need additional scorers. So the trade they put together was Contavious Caldwell-Pope and Corey Joseph. Now, Contavious Caldwell-Pope, I think, is a decent player.
Yeah.
And Corey Joseph is a thrown in, so he's a decent player. I'd actually would like to see, I don't know if it works contract-wise, but would maybe a Jonathan Isaac be a better possibility? I think he only comes off the bench for them.
Yeah.
And he's probably not as good a shooter, but I think his length athleticism more intrigues me than Contavious Caldwell-Pope from the Magic. But okay, there's number one. Number two is the two Lakers ones. You trade DeMar DeRozan straight up for Norm Powell.
Okay.
To the Lakers, it'd be Dorian Finney-Smith and Gabe Vincent. Now, Dorian Finney-Smith has been a long-time 3-and-D type of player, good long athleticism. Gabe Vincent made a name for himself at the Miami Heat and signed a decent-sized contract. He actually played for the Stockton Kings. He's a point guard. I don't know if he's a starter, but he's an actual point guard, and we need point guard depth. So you're like, okay, I could kind of see that. The next one is Detroit. They're up and coming. Would they want DeMar DeRozan to fit with Cade Cunningham and a few other players? So you can kind of see how that might fit. We get Tobias Harris back. And the last one is because this guy has always been traded to the Kings and never come here is Kyle Kuzma, straight up for DeMar DeRozan.
I'll say this once, and I'll say this a million times. I don't want Kyle Kuzma. I sort of wanted him when we were going to trade Buddy Hield for him. However, did you see what he did to the Bucks? Did you see what he did to the Bucks? They were a good team, and then they weren't a good team.
Totally agree with you. That was
the only reason why the Bucks were actually good is because of Giannis Antetokounmpo. End of discussion.
Okay.
Keep Kyle Kuzma away from my team at all costs.
The one that I'm most intrigued by is probably the least likely. I'm intrigued by Norm Powell.
Yeah.
Because he was a really good scorer on the Clippers this year. I could really like Norman Powell, I think, on the Kings. The other one I kind of like is Tobias Harris. I think he's a little bit older.
I think that if we traded to DeMar to the Clippers, they would finish their old core triangle, and then they go to win the finals with 3 old heads.
With Harden, DeMar DeRozan, and
Kawhi Leonard? Yes.
Yes.
That's a great fit. Nothing bad would happen.
But I could see the Clippers wanting him.
I can't. I think the Clippers want to find younger talent than that, and I think that Norman Powell is one of their younger talents that they want to try and keep around because they have an old James Harden, they have an old Kawhi Leonard. I don't think they need any old players, which is an old DeMar DeRozan.
But DeMar DeRozan, he's very healthy. If you're looking at compared to
he
stays pretty
compared
healthy.
to Kawhi Leonard, I'm healthy. I have diabetes.
Okay. Do you have a favorite out of this 5? Which, if you had all 5 of these options on the table,
I'd say the Dorian Finney-Smith and Gabe Vincent trade, not because of Gabe Vincent, but because of Mr. Finney-Smith. Why did I say Mr. Finney-Smith? Mr.
Finney-Smith.
Mr. Finney-Smith. Can I call you Dorian?
Okay.
I think that would be the best one because, first of all, I think the Lakers would try to get another big name, and he'd probably do something because he has a Luka where he doesn't have to be the number 1 option. He has LeBron James where he also doesn't have to be the number 1 option. I think DeMar DeRozan would be really good if he was the 3rd option out of 3 really good options. I think that would work. They also have Austin Reeves for that team. So the team of Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, the 2 exciting whites on the Lakers, I think are going to be leading them through the future throughout whenever LeBron retires or goes somewhere else. And I think that adding DeMar would make the most sense for at least any other team to go to the Lakers, except for maybe the Bucks, because I don't think that a young team like the Pistons want DeMar DeRozan because I feel like he would take away too much from Cade Cunningham. I don't think a team like the Magic.
I think the Orlando Magic might want him.
They might want him, but in the way that the Kings wanted him, I think that he's going to do the same thing that he did with the Magic, and he's going to kind of suck the energy out of the Magic.
The team that I think would want him the most would be the Orlando Magic.
Okay.
Or the next would be the 2 LA teams. I'm not totally sure which one would more between the Clippers and the Lakers. But you're like, that's where I'm like, Contavious Caldwell-Pope and Dorian Finney-Smith are very similar players to me. I and I'm not sure which one I want more. I kind of
Mhm.
I agree with you. I like Gabe Vincent better than Corey Joseph in that trade. So Dorian Finney-Smith, Gabe Vincent would be a decent trade.
Yes.
I would take it. So, but I'd also be like, what else are the Kings doing? That's all you're doing, getting DeMar DeRozan. So anyway,
Mhm.
okay, we've talked.
We've almost talked an hour about just basketball and the Kings. Anyway, football.
Football.
Speaking of football, how are the Stallions doing?
The Stallions, it's in the third quarter, about midway through the third quarter, and it's now 29-9. So good job, Stallions.
Wait. Right, there's 3-point conversions. Never mind.
Yeah, there's. I think they scored a 6 points and didn't get the 1 point or the 2 point conversion.
Oh, and then they just kicked
'Cause
the field goal.
it was 23-9, and then they went to 29-9. So anyway, there's your Stallions
Okay,
update.
before we go into the 49ers, I have a little fun thing I want to ask for you.
Okay.
Who do you think, how do you think the NFL awards are going to shape up this year? I want to go from, I don't want to say MVP yet. Let's go up from there. Who do you think is going to be the offensive rookie of the year?
Offensive rookie of the year. So players that just got drafted. So if people in contention, I would say be Travis Hunter,
Travis Hunter,
Ashton Genty.
Ashton Genty.
Could be Cam Ward from
Cam Ward, yes.
Tennessee. That's another possibility. I'm gonna go Ashton Genty.
I'm also thinking Ashton Genty for that. So let's put Ashton Genty on the board for both of us.
Okay.
For defensive player of the year. That's an interesting, not defensive player, defensive rookie of the year. I mean,
could I be a total homer and pick Mikael Williams from the Niners?
From what I said, from my predictions for him, I think you could say Mikael Williams. I'm gonna go Travis Hunter. I think Travis Hunter is a better cornerback than he is a wide receiver. So I think he should play more cornerback, even though he's probably gonna get a lot more money if he's a wide receiver. But
the other thing is you got Abdul Carter.
I think Abdul Carter is probably going to win it out of all these. I'll say Abdul Carter for that because he's just really good.
The other thing I would say is it Simmons? The linebacker that the Eagles drafted at the end of the first round. The Niners are actually possibly picking him. I think his first name starts with an S. He was picked at the end of the first round. I could see a linebacker also being a win, and he's with the Eagles. They got a whole bunch of other good players around. Maybe he goes off and gets a whole bunch of tackles. So he's
Josh Simmons?
No. He's an offensive tackle.
Okay.
Linebacker.
Well, the person that you're talking about from the Eagles is, I'm going to say, Jihad Campbell.
Yeah. So I was horrible at his name. Okay.
Sims is not anywhere close.
Yes. Sorry. Jihad Campbell, linebacker, drafted by the Eagles in the first round. Okay. He's my dark horse defensive rookie of the year.
I'll write those down.
Okay. We'll see if we were
And
close.
then let's say coach of the year now.
Ooh,
Who do you think is again?
So it's normally a team that outlives their expectations. I'm going to say Ben Johnson of the Bears.
Why?
Everybody's predicting the Bears to make a turnaround in the last couple of years. They're going to do it eventually, right?
I think the Bears are still going to be the worst team in their conference because they're against the Lions, they're against the Packers, they're against the Vikings. They're still going to be last place out of those three teams. Now, the only team that they could change with is probably the Vikings because they have J.J. McCarthy. But I think J.J. McCarthy is going to be pretty good, honestly.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Who'd you pick?
I'm trying to think of what his name is. I can't think of what his name is right now. Why am I'm lost right now. Hold on. Give me a second.
Can I go back while you're thinking?
Yes.
Why didn't you just Shedeur Sanders for your offensive rookie of the year?
Are you funny? Do you think this is funny? This is a joke?
All right, I was distracting you. Okay, who's your coach?
Oh man, I cannot think of his name right now, but the new coach for the Jaguars. Because I think the Jaguars are going to win their division this year.
Okay.
Now, they're in the AFC South, and that's not really a competition to win in the AFC South. You do have to go against Liam Cohen. I think they're going to win, as I said, the AFC South this year. Now, you do have to kind of go against the Houston Texans, and I think the Texans are going to be a lot worse than they were last year. They had a really good rookie season with C.J. Stroud. I think C.J. Stroud is going to be really good. He had sort of a sophomore slump because he didn't have an offensive line. And again, they don't have an offensive line. They barely drafted any offensive linemen in this draft, especially with any of their higher picks, which is a topic that we can talk about another day. But
Okay.
I think that the Texans are still going to be a wild card team. They're not going to miss the playoffs, but I think they're going to be a lot worse than people are saying. But yeah, what's the Jaguars head coach name?
Liam Cohen.
Liam Cohen. Duval.
Okay.
Okay, now let's get into the more interesting ones. Who do you think is going to be Defensive Player of the Year? You can't say Nick Bosa.
I was actually thinking Fred Warner. If I wanted to pick a Niner, it'd be Fred Warner because he was leading last year for the first 4 or 5 weeks, and then he hurt his ankle.
He fractured his ankle and played the rest of the season on it.
Yeah, and he still was pretty decent. The other name pops in my head would be Micah Parsons, but I don't think the Cowboys are going to be anywhere that good to do that. I don't know. Good question.
I'm going to say Aiden Hutchinson from the Lions.
Oh, coming back from injury.
Coming back from injury, I think that Aiden Hutchinson has been shown to be really good, and that he was really good, and then I forget what injury that he had that cut him out for the rest of the year, but I think he's going to win the DPOY this year. Let's go backwards and not say Offensive Player of the Year. Who do you think is going to be the Comeback Player of the Year?
My Niner candidate is CMC.
Yeah, I was going to say Christian McCaffrey, too.
That's totally the Niner candidate. Will he win it? If he stays healthy, I think he totally wins it. If he is healthy,
100%.
he wins. And he does because, as we get to like what we heard from OTAs, he is 100% healthy right now, according to what is coming out of OTAs, and people are calling him bouncy. Which, when you have Achilles problems and you are bouncy, yeah, you're healthy.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
If he stays that way, I totally CMC could. That's just a homer pick. That is a legitimate candidate. Comeback Player of the Year. I mean, you could almost say Aiden Hutchinson on Comeback Player of the Year, too.
Yeah, that too.
Is there anybody else that got centered? With J.J. McCarthy, but he never really was there before. I actually kind of thinking CMC might be my leading candidate.
I want to say CMC. I was thinking CMC because of what he does, but I don't want to be the same thing as you again. So
yeah, somebody else.
I'm just trying to think of.
Was there a quarterback or somebody that got?
I don't
injured
know.
last year?
You could say if Aaron Rodgers actually goes to the Steelers, I think that he could win it. You could say Joe Burrow for a third time, even though he led the league in passing yards and I think passing touchdown last season, and he missed the playoffs. You could say I don't actually know where Kirk Cousins is right now. But
he's the Atlanta Falcons, but he
Okay.
played most of last year.
But
So
I don't think he's going to do that. I don't think any. I'm going to say Aiden Hutchinson because he's going to win defense. Like I said, he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I think Aiden Hutchinson.
Okay, that's
Let's
good
say
to be
Aiden
the-
Hutchinson. Okay,
Okay.
Offensive Player of the Year.
Who's going to go off this year from offensively? So normally the MVP is normally a quarterback.
Yes.
And the offensive player is usually a wide receiver or a running back who has an amazing year.
Yes.
Don't think it's Derrick Henry because I don't think he's going to be 2 years in a row.
Can I say my answer?
Sure.
But Derrick Henry 2 years. Saquon Barkley won last year.
Okay, well, Derrick Henry had a good season.
Okay. My answer is that the Bengals are actually going to win games this year. Oh my gosh! And that Jamar Chase is going to be Offensive Player of the Year this year. He won the Triple Crown last year and didn't make the playoffs. So I think that he's going to have a worse season than last season, but he's still going to have amazing numbers.
Okay.
So he's going to win Offensive Player of the Year. And then I think that the Bengals defense is going to be better than last season, which is not a high bar to be better than the Bengals defense last season. So, my gosh, what did I just do? So, Jamar Chase.
I like Jamar Chase, especially since he's on my fantasy league with it as a keeper. So you're like,
Yeah.
I always have him.
A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson.
I could see Justin Jefferson, but with J.J. McCarthy, I don't know about that. That's a good one. I don't know.
Christian McCaffrey.
I mean, I would love it to be Christian McCaffrey.
You could have it be another quarterback.
That's true. It could be another quarterback. I wonder how motivated Patrick Mahomes is from losing the Super Bowl.
I don't know. If you're saying that if he's going to be motivated to do this, you should
But he would
keep
be
him for
he would be an
MVP candidate. Yes.
He'd be totally MVP candidate. I think he's going to be an MVP candidate.
I think that if you can't pick anyone if I could pick a second person, or I could give you an idea, if
Sure, because I have not thought about this. So
Joe
go ahead.
Burrow, Offensive Player of the Year, he's literally Drew Brees.
Yeah. Okay.
Just the more that I think about that makes sense. Joe Burrow is basically Drew Brees. He's really, really good. He just doesn't have the team around him to
Yeah.
get a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go
You
for
want,
that.
you want to go Joe Burrow?
Sure.
For Offensive Player of the Year?
I'll say Joe
And
Burrow.
I'm saying Jamar Chase, so
Okay.
which is right there,
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
MVP. Who do you have for most valuable player? Now, can I say who I want it to be?
Brock Purdy.
Yes.
Okay.
I think he's going to be in consideration. I think he's going to be at least top 5 in voting.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to win it, though. Now the fun part comes.
I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be on a little bit of a revenge tour, but I don't know if his team is going to be good enough around him to win MVP.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's going to be a little bit more motivated this year after losing.
Mm-hmm.
The other MVP candidates, I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to be in it. Lamar Jackson's always seems to be there. I'm going to go Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
That's where I was leaning first. I'll just stick with my first inclination there.
I think. I don't want to say Jane Daniels. It's too early for Jane Daniels.
Yeah, he's too young.
I'll say Jalen Hurts. I think the Eagles are going to get the 1 seed this year
Okay.
for the. Well, if not the Eagles, then it's the Niners because the Niners have a really easy schedule. But I think the Eagles are going to be really, really good this year. So I'm going to say Jalen Hurts for MVP.
Okay.
Write it down.
Okay, Niner stuff.
Niner stuff. Actual Niner stuff. Not just NFL stuff.
Okay, so out of all the things that are happening recently, the Niners have a new punter. They got rid of Mitch Wiskonowski. I forget the guy's name, the new punter, but they have a new punter. It goes along with their new. They have a new long snapper. They're bringing in another kicker to compete against Jake Moody. Why am I starting with special teams? I have no idea. The other big news of the weekend was the Niners are trading for Bryce Huff. I really like this move. Now he's was not a good fit for a Vic Fangio defense in the Eagles last year.
Yes.
So
yes.
he didn't. But then when he played for Robert Saleh. Another way you could look at this is the Niners are going all in Robert Saleh. Between drafting the first 5 picks, all defensive players for Robert Saleh, they're bringing in Bryce Huff, who's another former Jet. So his last season in 2023 with Robert Saleh, he had 10 sacks that year, and he was it number 1 or number 2 in pressure rate that year? So in pressures, so
Nice.
he was like over 20% in pressure rate, so top of the league in pressure. So you add that to Nick Bosa, and he comes in as only a pass rushing specialist. He's not going to be your starter. He's going to be coming in with the Niners called a turbo package. So Mikael Williams is probably your starter, and he's going to be your run specialist. Mikael Williams can learn. He's going to learn to rush the passer with Bosa. But he'll have Bryce Huff. He'll have Chris Kocurek, the coach, to teach him how to do these things. But I think taking the pressure off Mikael Williams and even Gross Matos of being the turbo package pass rush specialist and adding to Bryce Huff is really good. The Niners get him for like a day 3 pick, so it's a mid-round pick. I haven't heard any details come out of that. They're only having to pay like $8 million of his contract this year, which is a little bit less than half. So the Eagles are still paying around. I think his contract is around $17 million. So then that means their Eagles are paying $9 million. Niners are paying about. Or Eagles are paying $9 million. Kings. Niners are paying around $8 million. So it's kind of a win-win situation for the Niners. They have the cap space to absorb him. This is, I think, a really good move. And I heard one person say this could be the best bookend pass rusher opposite Nick Bosa since he's been in the league. Like, better than D Ford. We'll see. So I really like that move. Anything you want to say about Bryce Huff?
No.
Okay.
Not a single thing.
Other news.
I don't pay attention to the Eagles. I'm not Chase Senior. I don't talk about the Niners and the Eagles at the same time.
First team OTAs happened this week. Juan Jennings looks really good.
Surprisingly.
Yeah, not surprisingly. Now, last year I was before the season I was not expecting Juan Jennings to be a really good wide receiver.
I was.
Yeah, Max did. Max was counting on him. I was not as good on him, but this year you're like, I don't know if we can keep him.
I just kicked my Sorry.
Max is
Hi, I'm down here now.
Max this plane. I wonder if the Niners will be able to re-sign him after the season because he's only got 1 year left on this contract. Will the Niners be able to re-sign him next year? I don't know.
I think that they're gonna wait out at least to like a mid-season point to re-sign him. I think they might re-sign him mid-season like how they did Diamante Lenore.
Exactly.
I think they're just gonna go out and prove yourself because this might be a 1 year fluke. It probably won't be, but it might have been a 1 year fluke.
Yeah.
So they're gonna say to him, "Go out and prove it, and then you'll get your money."
Yeah. Mikael Williams, the number 1 overdraft pick, looks the part. Now, defensive linemen and offensive linemen are really hard to gauge in OTAs because no one has helmet on unless pads on. So you're just, he's athletic and he looks big and strong. Good job. You fit the part. Okay. Fred Warner talked about Nick Martin, asking him tons of questions, which when Nick Martin got drafted, I was a little worried about that. But you keep hearing why the Niners really targeted him, all stuff. Okay, I'm starting to believe the Nick Martin hype.
Okay.
I love the idea of him actually asking a lot of questions to Fred Warner. And it was like questions he said, like, what do you do in the offseason? What do you do after practice? What do you do before? When do you get your lifts in? Like those types of like veteran questions, like how do you live your life as football is my number one thing and not just college anymore? So, okay, good questions. Ricky Pearsall, which the Niners really need, him and Juan Jennings to be your starters at the beginning of the season. He has a tweaked hamstring, nothing serious, but he will be out for some OTAs.
Okay.
Brock Purdy looked really good, but of course, even Brock Purdy will tell you this, that I've heard some quotes from him recently, like, if you don't look good on 7-on-7 drills as a quarterback, then you shouldn't be in the league.
Yeah.
You had some offensive line, you got to be able to throw our offensive linemen, but the idea of him, you got to get to where your players are going. The other one that I've heard really good things is I was actually down our last podcast on Jordan Watkins.
Okay.
He actually kind of popped a little bit. There's some of the reports coming out. Like he actually had some good. Like he looks the part, and he's coming out of cuts really good. And so, like, okay, maybe he's better than I expected.
Okay.
Now it's still OTAs. We'll see how it looks in preseason, but good things. Let's see. Is anything else we want to say here about the Niners?
Okay. Do you have anything else for like news stuff?
Probably not news stuff.
Since the last episode that we recorded, the schedule has been released. Let's go through the schedule. Let's do a way too early prediction for how the season is going to play out. So week 1 at Seattle, what do you think? Sam Darnold is their quarterback. First full. Oh my gosh, my brain is blowing up right now. There's nothing left. This is why summer's about to start because I'm done with this. At Seattle.
The Niners usually start really good.
Yes. I think easy.
I don't think it's easy because you got Sam Darnold. They got Cooper Kupp. Didn't they bring in Cooper Kupp?
Cooper Kupp isn't going to be as good as he was. He's sort of lost a step.
Now so it's Mike McDonald. I think it's his second year.
No, my storage is full. You got to be kidding me.
Okay, so we're down to videos. How's mine doing? Yeah, we're doing fine over here. Okay. Anyway, so I think it's going to be tough, but sure, we'll count it a win.
Something to delete. I still think we're going to win. So
okay.
Yes.
Okay. New Orleans. At New Orleans.
Easy.
Yeah,
so
that
easy.
one I do.
The easiest situation easiest game I've ever seen. Who's their quarterback? Name it.
Rattler.
Or they have Spencer Rattler. They have, I don't even remember what the other guy's name is because he was so bad. And they have Tyler Shuck. Who's their quarterback?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. That one I think is going to be easier. Next game is home game is Arizona. Arizona's rebuilt their defense and it had some good players in there. So I think that's going to be a close game. But sure, we can count it up as a win. We'll just be optimistic and say we're going to start as a big win.
Dub City.
Okay.
Jacksonville. Now, I think Jacksonville is going to be good this year. A lot better than they were last season.
But I feel way more comfortable beating Jacksonville than I do Arizona and Seattle.
Yes,
I think
same.
the sensitive division games of Arizona and Seattle, I think those games are going to be really tough.
If you look at me right now, I'm trying to fix the camera.
Okay. Next game is at LA on Thursday night.
Now, that's a tough one for me. But you're at Levi's South, though.
Yeah, it is Levi's South. Just because I'm going to say it's a loss. Because you're not going to win every game.
Yes. I'll say that I won't say that you're going to lose that one.
Okay.
I'm going to say that's another win for us.
Okay. Next is at Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a little bit
rematch of last year.
Yep. Okay. At Tampa Bay. We're actually going to South Florida this time. We're not South Florida. They're not South Florida. That's Miami. Going to Florida.
We went to them last time. We didn't play them at home.
Yeah, that's fine.
Now the real question is, how good do you think the Buccaneers are going to be?
That's my hard part. Just because I think the Niners
Okay,
are going
camera.
to be unpredictable, I'm going to say it's a loss.
Okay. I'm going to say that's a win for us.
I got 2 losses.
So 2 losses in a row for us.
Yes, I say 2 losses.
Okay, now against the Atlanta Falcons.
That's a home game. I think
Yes.
because they have Penix as a new rookie quarterback, they have some other things. I think the Niners are going to win that game.
Okay. I'm also going to say they're going to win that game.
Okay.
I say that's easy. Now Houston Texans.
It's in Houston.
At Houston, yes.
I'm going to say middle of the season woes, and I'm going to say we lose that game. So
I'm also going to say we lose that game.
That's a third win.
I'm
Third
just
loss.
saying we're not going perfect.
Yep.
Shocker.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to
Okay, so
do
I
that.
got 3 losses. Then they go next Sunday's at New York Giants.
easy.
Easy win,
Could be a trap game. Probably won't be.
hopefully.
I think the trap games that could happen are the Jacksonville game and the Bucks game. Just looking at the schedule.
Could be.
And then home against the Rams.
I think you lost them the first time. I think you're going to beat them the second time.
I think you're going to win both of them. I think you're going to sweep the series.
Okay, so
And then at Arizona.
At Arizona.
2 wins in a row now.
I think you're going to lose to Arizona in
I'm
Arizona.
going to say lose. I'm going to say we're going to win. I'm
Okay.
trying to be optimistic right here.
I'm trying to be more realistic. So I got 4 losses so far
Okay.
after week 11. So that
Now
means
week
that they're
12.
7-4. 7-4 is still pretty good.
Yeah.
Carolina, that's a win.
Okay, that's a win.
That's
I'll agree with
That's
that.
on Monday Night Football.
At Cleveland.
That's a win.
That is also a win to me. Home against Tennessee. Bye week. And then home against Tennessee.
Cam Ward, rookie, is he still healthy? I'm assuming, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think coming off the bye week, Niners win at home.
Okay. I will also agree with that. Against at Indianapolis.
I have no idea how good they're going to be.
I
And
don't
by
think
the
they're
end of
gonna.
the
I
season-
think they're gonna be like a bottom 4 team this year
Yeah.
because they have a QB competition between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. And if you have a QB competition, one of the names is Daniel Jones, that means something bad is happening.
Okay, sure, we'll count that as a win.
We'll count that as a win.
Mm-hmm.
Week 17 against the Bears.
See, I think let me just combine Chicago and the last game against Seattle. I think you're going to split those two between them. I think the Bears are going to be better. Pick Ben Johnson as my coach of the year. I think you're going to split. So you're going to end up with 5 losses in the season. So this would be 12 and 5.
I think I say
season.
we have.
So you're. that would
Why
get
do
you
I
to
only
12
have
and 5.
one?
I have.
I feel like I should have another one at some point.
Are you
but
writing these down?
I'm writing these down.
So I'm saying, if you're going to, which one? I'm going to say you're split. So you're at 12 and 5.
Mhm.
Maybe you beat Chicago and lose to Seattle.
Because if you beat Chicago, then you're what is it?
If you beat Chicago, you're 12 and 4.
And is that the 1 seed?
Yeah, maybe you're not playing for much, or maybe you're not. Or I don't know. 12
I'm
and
gonna
5.
I'm gonna say we lose to the Bears,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna say we lose to the Seahawks, just because at this point we're what is it like, 14 and.
I have 12 and 5. How many losses do you have?
Before then I had 1.
Oh, so we were 15 and 1
Yes.
going into the last, or that would be 14 and 1 going into the last 2 weeks of the season.
Yes.
And you're gonna lose both games after being 14 and 1.
I think you could. That's because at the point you're resting your starters because you already have the 1 seed.
Okay. Okay.
I think if we're actually 15 and 1, I feel like we'd beat the Bears and then it wouldn't matter and we just let the Seahawks win.
Okay.
Sort of like how the Chiefs did last season where they were like 15 and 1 and then they're just like, okay, we're playing the Broncos. I don't care right now.
I mean, I totally see the Niners doing that good.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you said last time, the Niners could be anywhere between 7 wins and 14 wins this season.
Mm-hmm.
I still stand behind that. Like the Niners are counting a whole bunch of young players. If these young players don't count it or they take half the season to come out, that's where I'm counting a whole bunch of losses in the middle because I think there will be growing pains in the middle of the season as they're learning how to be professionals and stuff like that. And then I think they might come on toward the end of the season.
I'm going to change one of my answers. I'm going to say week 5 against the Rams we lose because I need to have more losses and I don't know where they would come from.
Okay. So there we go. There's our way too early looking at the schedule and reviewing the schedule. We'll probably do these right before the season again, see if we change our answers. And then people can make fun of us later of how bad we did.
That would be me.
Max
I'll
is
make fun
gonna-
of you.
Max will make fun of me.
Because I love you.
You only make fun of people that you like.
Yeah, if I don't make fun of people that I don't care about, well, I don't care about Vita Vacrano Dive, but I know you, so that's different.
Okay, it's different.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any of my notes? Let me go back to my prep here. No, I think I said most of the stuff we want to talk about. So, yeah, it's nice to have some. So the next episode, we can talk a little about the Niners have a mandatory mini camp in a couple weeks. See if anything comes out of that. And we'll probably won't have any. We'll probably review the NBA Finals, how they did. I also have to say it's really hard for me to get into NBA draft because the Kings don't have a pick till I think it's around pick 40. I think is when
Yeah.
we have-
So
it's really hard to get into the pick or the NBA draft. You're like, I see all these mock drafts come up on my feeds and stuff, and you're like,
I don't care.
I don't care. I wish we had a top 3 or something pick.
I wish we had a top 15 pick.
Yeah, I could talk more about maybe in the next episode. We'll talk more about what I think the Spurs will do with the number 2 pick. I think that's totally interesting. But I think that's enough for today.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for listening. We greatly appreciate all you guys.
And we'll see you guys next time.